The scenario for our group presentation is outdoor worker in Malaysia exposed to high solar UV radiation, and the focus is pathophysiology of UV related ocular rays, prevention and protection, and community awareness. Today we are addressing a health risk that is often overlooked because it is an inherent part of our daily environment, which is solar radiation. While the sun is essential for biological function, for the millions of people working in sectors such as agriculture, fishing and construction, it represents a severe and often neglected occupational hazard. To understand the severity, we must look at how health authorities classify this risk. The International Agency for Research on Cancer classifies solar radiation and all of its three ultraviolet components, which is UVA, UVB and UVC, as Group 1 carcinogen. This places sunlight in the same high-risk category as other well-known occupational hazards like asbestos and tobacco. Because optical radiation has a relatively low penetration depth, it cannot reach internal organ. Therefore, the two primary biological targets that absorb the vast majority of this damaging energy are the eyes and the skin. The risk is particularly acute for outdoor workers because their extreme exposure levels are consistently reported to be 6 to 8 times higher than those of indoor workers. To manage this risk, we must understand the science behind how sunlight interacts with the human eye. The most hazardous component of the solar spectrum is ultraviolet radiation, which acts as an invisible ray of energy. While our atmosphere blocks the most lethal UVC rays, approximately 95% of UVB and 100% of UVA rays reach the Earth's surface and interact directly with our eyes. The human body has evolved some natural defense to defend this. Our orbital bones, eyebrow and eyelashes provide anatomical shielding, while involuntary reflex like squinting and the pupillary reflex help limit the amount of light entering the eye. However, these defenses are primarily designed to block overhead sunlight and are often insufficient for a full workday of exposure. A major hidden danger for outdoor workers is the bounce effect, scientifically known as albedo. UV rays reflect off work surface such as water, sand or concrete, entering the eye from the side or bottom where our natural anatomical defense cannot reach. Research indicates that roughly 30% of ambient solar radiation has successfully reached the surface of the eye through these indirect routes. Once absorbed, this high-energy photon triggers cellular damage through photochemical mechanism. This leads to oxidative stress, DNA mutation and protein denaturation within the cornea and lens cell, forming the foundation for the chronic eye disease that we will discuss today.
Now, I will present the impact of solar ultraviolet radiation on outdoor workers, focusing on the eyes, skin, and other systemic effects, with example from paddy field and palm oil workers in Malaysia. First, I will discuss the effect of the eye. In the short term, UV radiation, especially UVB, can cause photokeratitis and photoconjunctivitis. This occurs when UVB damage the cornea epithelium, leading to symptoms such as pain, redness, tearing, and photophobia, similar to a sunburn of the eye. Another acute condition is solar retinopathy, which happens when intense light exposure, including visible light and UVA. This will damage the retina and may result in permanent central vision loss. In the long term, chronic UV exposure leads to several ocular conditions. For example, pterygium and pinguicula are very common among outdoor workers. Pinguicula is harmless yellowish raised bulb on the conjunctiva that does not grow onto the cornea, whereas pterygium is a fibrovascular growth that extends onto the cornea and can affect vision by inducing astigmatism or blocking the visual axis. Next is cataract, especially cortical cataract, occur when UVB causes protein denaturation in the lens, leading to the lens opacity. Also, age-related macular degeneration (ARMD) is associated with cumulative oxidative stress from UVA affecting the cornea. Affecting the retina. Other conditions also include climatic droplet keratopathy and, in rare case, also ocular tumors due to long-term DNA damage. These factors are higher in palm oil workers who are exposed to sunlight for prolonged periods without eye protection. Next, I will discuss about the effect on the skin. Next, firstly, sunburn occurred due to UVB exposure, presenting as erythema or skin redness. Secondly, photoaging is mainly caused by UVA, which penetrates deeper into the dermis and breaks down collagen, leading to wrinkles and reduced skin elasticity. However, the most important concern is squamous cell carcinoma or SCC. This is type of cancer affecting both the skin and the ocular surface, caused by long-term exposure to UV radiation. UVA and UVB induce DNA mutations, leading to carcinogenesis. UV radiation is classified as a group 1 carcinogen, making SCC a significant occupational risk, especially among outdoor workers. Additionally, actinic keratosis, a precancerous lesion caused by chronic UVB exposure, may progress to SCC if left untreated. And last but not least, solar UV radiation also affect other body systems. Prolonged sun exposure can lead to heat-related illness such as heat exhaustion and dehydration. It can also cause immune suppression, disrupt circadian rhythm, and lead to fatigue and reduce work performance.
On this slide, I will present the evidence on UV radiation exposure among outdoor workers, especially in agriculture. Firstly, outdoor workers are at high risk because they are exposed to sunlight for long hours every day. According to the World Health Organization, ultraviolet radiation is a major risk factor for eye disease. It contributes to about 42 to 74% of pterygium cases and 25% of cortical cataracts globally. This shows that UV exposure plays a significant role in preventable visual problems. In terms of occupation, agriculture is consistently identified as one of the most high-risk sectors. Farmers experience cumulative UV exposure that is much higher than indoor workers due to prolonged outdoor activities under direct sunlight. For example, a study by Salazar in 2026 reported that 21.6% of cases involving outdoor workers in Peru were linked to skin cancer. Similarly, a study in Nigeria found that 65% of pterygium patients were outdoor workers, reinforcing the strong association between UV exposure and eye disease. Regionally, research in the Malay Peninsula also reports a high prevalence of pterygium, which is closely related to chronic sunlight exposure in tropical populations like Malaysia. However, despite these risks, the use of protective measures is still low. The same study showed that although 42.4% of farmers wore long sleeve, only 9.8% used sunscreen regularly, and 87.7% did not wear sunglasses while working. This suggests that awareness and practice of UV protection are still inadequate. Importantly, protective measures are effective. Standard lenses can reduce UV exposure by about 31%, while UV blocking lenses can reduce it by up to 93%. In conclusion, outdoor workers face significantly higher UV exposure and are at greater risk of eye disease, yet protective practices remain insufficient. This highlights the need for better awareness and preventive strategies.
Now, I will explain the prevention and protection strategies for high solar UV radiation among outdoor workers in Malaysia. First, we have personal protective equipment or PPE. This is the most direct way to reduce UV exposure. For example, wearing a wide brim hat or even a cap can help block sunlight from directly reaching the eyes and face, which are highly exposed during outdoor work. In addition, UV protective sunglasses are also very important because they block harmful UVA and UVB from entering the eyes. This helps reduce the risk of the eye conditions such as cataract and pterygium. Workers can also wear protective clothing like long sleeve shirt to reduce the amount of skin exposed to the sun. There are also UV blocking contact lenses that provide extra protection, but they only protect part of the eye and not the surrounding area. Next, we move on to behavioral strategies which focus on daily habits. Workers should try to reduce exposure during peak sunlight hours, especially around midday when the UV radiation is strongest. If avoiding work at that time is not possible, they should take short breaks in shade area wherever they can. Applying sunscreen regularly on exposed skin is also very important. In addition, checking the UV index can help workers understand when the risk is higher and take extra precaution. Workplace and organizational measures. Protection should not depend only on the workers. Employer also play a key role. For example, work can be scheduled earlier in the morning or later in the afternoon to reduce exposure during peak UV hours. Employers should also provide protective equipment such as hats, sunglasses, and sunscreen. At the same time, training and awareness programs are important to ensure workers understand the risks and know how to protect themselves properly. Finally, there is an important challenge. Even though these protective measures are available, many workers do not use them consistently. This may be due to discomfort from heat, lack of awareness, or inconvenience. As a result, UV-related damage continue to occur even though it is largely preventable. In conclusion, effective prevention requires a combination of personal protective, good daily habits, and strong workplace support. When all these applied together, the risk of long-term UV damage can significantly be reduced.
Community awareness and barriers play a crucial role in understanding why outdoor workers are still at high risk of UV-related eye diseases. First, awareness is generally low. Around 83% of farmers have poor knowledge of sun protection and 88% never use sunglasses. This shows that UV-related eye risks are still under-recognized. Next, several common barriers affect protective behavior. These include the cost of PPE like sunglasses and sunscreen, discomfort in hot weather, lack of education, and cultural beliefs where sun exposure is considered normal. As a result, even though workers are exposed to high levels of UV daily, their protective practices remain low. This is important because it leads to preventable eye diseases such as pterygium and cataracts, which could be reduced with better awareness and protection. Based on the findings from our review, we propose a targeted policy to enhance solar UV eye protection among outdoor workers, particularly those in agriculture and plantation sectors. First, solar UV radiation should be officially recognized as an occupational hazard as it significantly increases the risk of eye diseases like pterygium, cataracts, and even squamous cell carcinoma. Second, employers should provide mandatory UV protective PPE, including UV 400 sunglasses and white brim hats, as studies have shown these materials are effective in blocking harmful UV radiation. Next, workplace safety regulations should be implemented, such as limiting exposure during peak hours, providing shaded areas, and rotating tasks, since outdoor workers often exceed safe UV exposure levels. In addition, regular health surveillance is important for early detection of UV-related eye conditions, which are often underdiagnosed. We also need to strengthen our awareness and education, especially among farmers, as many still have low knowledge and poor protective practices. Lastly, improving accessibility through subsidies is crucial, as cost remains a major barrier to using protective equipment. Overall, while effective protection exists, the main gap lies in awareness, access, and proper policy implementation. In conclusion, outdoor workers face a significantly higher risk of UV exposure due to prolonged time under the sun. This leads to serious health impacts, including conditions like pterygium, cataracts, and even squamous cell carcinoma. However, the main issue is that awareness is still low, and many workers do not consistently use protective measures. To address this, several actions are important. First, we need stronger health education campaigns to increase awareness about UV risk. Second, promoting the use of UV protective eyewear is essential. Third, implementing workplace safety policies can help ensure protection becomes a routine practice. Lastly, improving access to affordable PPE will make it easier for workers to protect themselves. These simple protective measures are effective in lowering the risk of UV-related eye conditions.